And the final analysis. A riot is the language of the unheard.
Yeah.
And what is it that America has failed to hear? Wow, that's Martin Luther King Jr. back in 1968.
Powerful words. And they still hit hard today, don't they?
They really do. They point to something so fundamental, that deep human need we all have to, well, to feel truly heard.
Exactly. And it's not just about big societal issues. It plays out every single day, you know? In our homes, with our friends, definitely at work. It impacts our well-being.
It really does.
Yeah.
But here's the strange thing, right? I saw this stat. Apparently, we spend something like 85% of our communication time listening.
Yeah, the vast majority.
But, and this is the kicker, we often only remember about 25% of what we actually hear.
It's pretty staggering when you think about it. We spend most of our communication time doing something we're, well, frankly, not very good at retaining.
Which is exactly why we wanted to do this deep dive. It's not just about the mechanics of hearing words. It's about digging into understanding, connection, bridging those gaps we often don't even see.
Yep.
So our mission today is really to explore what it means to truly listen, and maybe just as importantly, how to make others feel genuinely heard. We'll look at why sometimes, even when we try our best, it falls flat.
And introduce maybe a more nuanced perspective, something that really helps build that trust and connection we're all looking for.
Okay, let's get into it. Where do we start?
Right.
I guess with the basics people usually talk about.
Right. You almost have to start with the foundation everyone knows or thinks they know. Active listening.
Active listening. We hear that term all the time.
They do. And at its heart, it really is a conscious effort. It's intentional. It's about understanding, not just sort of letting sound wash over you. You're alert, you're attentive, you're actually engaged.
Okay, so when we say engage, what does that actually involve? What are the things people are taught to do? I mean, the obvious cues first, I suppose.
Exactly, the signals you send. So there's the verbal stuff, little noises like, yes, aha, I see.
Right.
And then the nonverbal side, you know, nodding, making eye contact, appropriate eye contact, not staring someone down.
Huh, yeah. Good point.
Keeping an open posture, maybe leaning in slightly, and having your facial expressions kind of match the speaker's tone. It all basically says, hey, I'm here with you. I'm tracking.
Makes sense. And then it goes beyond just looking like you're listening, right? There's the feedback part.
Absolutely. Providing feedback is key. But it's not about jumping in with your own story immediately. It's more about reflecting what you've heard.
How so? Like asking questions.
Yeah, asking clarifying questions is a big one. Things like, could you tell me a bit more about that? Or what do you mean when you say X?
Okay.
And also, paraphrasing, so what I think I'm hearing is, or, okay, so it sounds like you're feeling, that confirms your understanding correctly. And sometimes summarizing the key points helps keep everyone aligned.
And then there's the internal battle, isn't there? The whole paying attention part. That's more than just putting your phone away.
Oh, much more. Silencing notifications is step one, sure. But it's also about managing your own thoughts, you know, trying not to drift off or, and this is a big one for a lot of us, mentally rehearsing your response while the other person is still talking.
Guilty as charged. I think we all do that sometimes without even realizing it.
It's a real challenge. And connected to that is the fourth piece, deferring judgment.
Meaning just letting them finish.
Yes, letting the speaker get their whole thought out without interrupting with your counter-argument or your fix. Interrupting just shuts things down. You don't get the full picture.
Okay. And then finally, when it is your turn, how you respond matters too.
Definitely. If active listening is about showing respect, your response needs to reflect that. Be honest, be candid, sure, but assert your views respectfully. The goal is understanding, not winning an argument.
You know, it's interesting. Lots of big companies, like Google, for instance, they actually invest heavily in training their people on exactly these principles.
And it makes sense why they do. The benefits are pretty clear. When people practice active listening, you see more respect, more empathy. It tends to encourage people to be more open.
And better collaboration, presumably. Less misunderstanding.
Exactly. Better problem solving, stronger teams, fewer costly miscommunications.
Yeah.
And leaders who are good at it, they're consistently rated as much more effective.
Okay, so if it's so great and the benefits are so clear, why are we talking about unseen gaps? This is where I got really intrigued preparing for this. I always thought active listening was like the gold standard, full stop.
Right. It seems like it should be, but it turns out it's not quite the whole story, and this might surprise you, but the origins of active listening are actually in psychology. It was developed back in the 1950s.
Really? By who?
Psychologists Carl Rogers and Richard Farson, and here's the key. They developed it primarily as a tool for therapy.
Therapy. Okay, that definitely changes things. So its original purpose was for counselors.
Primarily, yes. The idea was for the therapist to listen for the total meaning, not just the words, but the feelings underneath. And crucially, to do it without judging or giving advice.
To just give the patient space to talk it out.
Exactly, to process things aloud, which is incredibly valuable in a therapeutic context, obviously. But think about trying to apply that exact model to, say, a fast-paced project meeting at work.
Yeah, I can see how that might not always fit. Or trying to do that over Slack or email with a remote team.
Precisely. The modern workplace, fast, results-oriented, often distributed, presents challenges that the original model just wasn't designed for. Some researchers, Nicole Lowenbraun and Megan Stevens, actually found that applying those traditional rules rigidly isn't always appropriate or effective in every work situation, or even with every person you talk to.
So active listening is a great foundation, but maybe not the complete toolkit for every scenario, especially at work. So what's the next step? Is there a more flexible way?
There is, and it's gaining traction. It's called adaptive listening.
Adaptive listening.
And it was specifically developed with the workplace in mind. The core idea is processing information and then responding in a way that meets the speaker's specific goals for that particular conversation.
Speaker's goals.
Okay.
Okay, so it's not just about me understanding, but understanding what they need out of this interaction.
Exactly. It requires you to think about several things at once. What am I thinking? What am I saying and showing? But also, who is this speaker? What are their goals right now? And what's the context of this specific moment? It's much more dynamic.
That sounds, well, more complex, but also more realistic maybe.
Sure.
It feels like tuning your listening strategy. So how does it differ practically from the traditional active listening rules? Let's take judgment and advice. Active listening says avoid them.
Right. But adaptive listening acknowledges that, look, in a work context, evaluation, critique, giving guidance, these things are often necessary. They're even expected sometimes.
Like if your boss asks for your honest opinion on a proposal.
Exactly. Or if you're coaching someone on a presentation, they need your critique. Adaptive listening isn't about never judging or advising. It's about knowing when it's appropriate, who you're talking to, and how to deliver that feedback effectively.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. What about the rule against jumping to conclusions?
Traditional active listening is firm. Don't do it. Wait patiently. But adaptive listening says, well, sometimes conclusion jumping or even interrupting can actually be productive.
Really? Like when?
Think about a really high-energy brainstorming session or an agile team working through a problem quickly. Sometimes finishing someone's sentence isn't rude. It shows you're right there with them, you're aligned, and it helps keep the momentum going. It signals, we're on the same page, let's move forward.
So it's about reading the room and the need for speed or alignment, not just rigidly sticking to never interrupt.
Got it.
And the third difference, providing feedback and asking questions. Active listening seems to say, always do this.
It generally encourages it, yes. But adaptive listening brings in nuance sometimes, but not always. There are times when asking a lot of questions or giving immediate feedback just isn't the right move.
Like when?
Well, imagine getting a very clear, direct instruction from a senior leader. That's probably not the time for 20 questions.
Right.
Or in a really large group meeting, jumping in with detailed feedback might derail things or feel disrespectful to the presenter. And think about asynchronous communication emails, documents. You can't always provide instant feedback. So again, it's about knowing how and when is most effective and appropriate for that situation.
It definitely sounds more practical, more tailored. But whether we're talking active listening or adaptive listening, what's the end game? What are we really trying to achieve with all this effort?
I think the ultimate goal, the thing that really resonates deep down is the experience of feeling heard.
Feeling hers.
Yeah. It sounds simple, but psychologically, it's incredibly powerful. It's maybe understudied compared to other concepts, but it's seen as a cornerstone for healthy self-development, for building close relationships. It's more than just processing words. It's about feeling validated, understood on a deeper level.
And I remember reading about some research by Carla Ann Roos and her team. They found that even though it feels like one single thing feeling heard, it's actually made up of distinct parts.
That's right. They described it as a unitary concept, meaning we experience it as a whole, but it relies on 5 components, kind of covering the me, the you, and the us of the conversation.
Okay, break that down. What are the 5?
So first, from the speaker's side, the me, there's voice. That's your ability to actually express yourself freely and authentically.
Okay.
Then from the listener, the you, there are 3 key things. Attention. Are they actually focused on you? Empathy. Are they trying to see things from your perspective, understand your feelings? And respect. Do they value what you're saying and value you as a person? Do you feel like you matter?
Voice, attention, empathy, respect. Okay.
Yeah.
And the 5th one, the us.
That's common ground. It's that feeling of mutual understanding, that sense that you've connected, that you're somehow on the same wavelength, even if you don't fully agree on everything.
That's fascinating. And this isn't just for like deep heart-to-hearts with loved ones, right? This feeling matters everywhere.
Everywhere, from those really intimate family talks, yes, but also think about dealing with customer service or negotiating with your insurance company or talking to a doctor. Feeling heard matters in almost any interaction, even with strangers.
So it's less about how well you know the person.
And much more about the quality of that specific interaction. And interestingly, the equality in the relationship seems to play a big role too. People tend to feel less heard when they're in a subordinate position or if someone else is just dominating the conversation.
But they feel most heard when it feels like an equal exchange.
Exactly. Which really suggests that feeling heard is often the outcome of what you might call successful collaboration in conversation.
That leads to an interesting point about today's world.
Yeah.
Social media. You'd think with all these platforms to express ourselves, we'd feel more heard.
You'd think so. But there's this thing researchers call the listening paradox of social media. Yes, you have endless platforms for voice, for self-expression, but because that immediate, genuine back and forth feedback is often missing.
Like the empathy and attention parts?
Precisely. People can actually end up feeling less heard online sometimes compared to a good face-to-face conversation. It's something to think about.
Okay, so we've established what feeling heard is and why it's complex, but let's talk bottom line. Why does this actually matter for us, practically speaking, in our jobs, in our lives? What are the real benefits?
Oh, the benefits are huge, especially at work. We mentioned leaders with good listening skills are seen as more effective, but flip that coin. There's data, I think, from the Workforce Institute showing a massive 86% of employees feel they aren't heard fairly or equally.
86%, that's shit.
It is, and 63% feel actively ignored sometimes. Think about the impact that has on morale and engagement.
Absolutely. But what's the upside? What happens when companies or leaders do get this right?
The payoff is significant. Salesforce research found that employees who feel genuinely heard are 4.6 times, think about that, nearly 5 times more likely to feel empowered to do their best work.
Wow. So it unlocks potential.
Definitely. It helps create that environment where people feel safe to speak up, to share ideas, even to admit mistakes, that whole fail-fast culture people talk about. That's where real innovation comes from, when ideas can bubble up from anywhere.
And I bet there are numbers tied to engagement and satisfaction, too.
Oh, yeah. The data's pretty compelling. HubSpot found training managers in active listening led to a 25% jump in employee engagement and a 10% boost in productivity. Gallup linked it to a 36% increase in job satisfaction.
That's substantial.
It is. And other sources link good workplace training, including listening skills, to about a 55% increase in job satisfaction and morale, and even influencing 75% of employees' decisions to stay with a company. It's a major retention factor.
And you mentioned technology adoption earlier, too. How does listening play into that?
Right. That Amern report highlighted that over 55% of the roadblocks to adopting things like automation aren't technical, they're people-related. Fears, resistance, lack of understanding.
So leaders who really listen can actually address those fears, manage the change better, and smooth the path for innovation.
Exactly. They can understand the concerns and help people navigate the transition, removing those critical human barriers.
Okay, that's workplace impact. What about conflict? We all deal with disagreements. Does listening help there?
Dramatically. One study showed active listening can improve conflict resolution outcomes by as much as 50%. 50%.
That's huge. Why?
Because when people feel heard, truly heard, they're apparently 80% more likely to actually engage constructively. They're less defensive, more open to finding solutions. And consider this, that Harvard Negotiation Project estimates that simple miscommunication is at the root of almost 95% of disputes.
95%. So just listening better could prevent a huge amount of conflict.
Or at least make resolving it much, much easier. We've seen real examples, too. There was a tech company that focused hard on listening skills training. They cut internal conflict by half, and their revenue actually went up by 25%.
Wow. Any other examples like that?
Yeah, a healthcare provider really invested in this. Their employee turnover dropped way down to like 10%, and patient satisfaction scores shot up by 40%. When staff feel heard, patients feel better cared for.
Makes total sense. And this must ripple outwards too, right? Like to customers.
Absolutely. Zendesk data shows customer satisfaction is 28% higher when support agents use effective listening. That builds brand loyalty. Harvard Business Review even suggests companies that excel at listening have about a 25% competitive advantage. It touches everything.
So it all seems to circle back to something deeper, doesn't it? There's that saying, I think it comes from social work. Listen to understand, not to reply.
Yes, I love that phrase. It really gets to the heart of it, the intention behind your listening.
What do you mean by intention?
Well, is your goal genuinely to understand where the other person is coming from, to help them maybe even figure out what they think or feel? Or is your main goal just to wait for your turn to talk, to make your point, to offer your solution, to kind of fix them?
Yeah, trying to fix someone rarely goes over well.
Exactly. It can feel really pushy, dismissive, like you're not trusting them to figure things out. True listening, the kind aimed at understanding, gives the speaker autonomy. It helps them find clarity.
And this is maybe most important when you actually disagree with someone.
Definitely. This is crucial. You can fundamentally disagree with someone's viewpoint, but still make them feel heard.
How does that work?
It's about acknowledging their perspective, saying things like, okay, I hear that this is really important to you, or I understand why you see it that way, even if I see it differently. It's about showing respect for them as a person, even amidst disagreement.
And that simple act, it can kind of lower the temperature.
Massively. It can foster mutual respect and understanding, even when you don't land on the same conclusion. It's honestly one of the most powerful tools we have for bridging divides, whether it's in a team meeting or on a much larger scale.
So bringing this all together then, what's the main thing we want people listening today to take away?
Well, we've gone from the basics of active listening, seen its limitations, explored the more flexible adaptive listening for work, and landed on this really core human experience of feeling heard.
Which is made up of those 5 parts: voice, attention, empathy, respect, and common ground.
Exactly. And remember, feeling heard is experienced as a single whole thing. And it's powerful. It really predicts how you'll feel about future interactions with that person or group. Will you engage openly next time, or will you kind of pull back?
So the key takeaway really is truly hearing someone isn't just ticking a box for good communication skills. It's way more fundamental than that.
It absolutely is. It's about building trust. It's about strengthening relationships, both at home and at work. It's about creating environments where people actually thrive, feel safe, feel valued. It really changes everything about how you connect.
So here's a thought to leave you with. Consider the quiet power you hold. The power to transform a tense conversation, to empower someone on your team, to bridge a gap with someone you disagree with.
And that power doesn't come from speaking louder or arguing better. It comes from listening more deeply, from consciously creating that space where another person can truly, genuinely feel heard.
Maybe take a moment this week just to reflect on your own conversations. Notice when you feel heard or when you don't. And maybe consciously try to practice some of these ideas. See where you can make someone else feel truly heard.
We really hope this deep dive gives you some new tools, or maybe just a fresh perspective, to listen, connect, and thrive in all your interactions.